Prime Minister Scott Morrison says he knew the French would be hurt by Australia's decision to cancel its $90 billion submarine contract, but still defends the decision. He just landed in New York, where he'll meet with Joe Biden at the UN. Sky News Washington correspondent Annalise Nielsen joins us live now. And Annalise, the US is trying to organise that phone call with the French president to diffuse some of this tension.
And they are confident it will happen, but not without some dramatic response from the French. They've made their feelings known about this contract being cancelled, and the pulling of the ambassadors from the US and Australia has not gone unnoticed on the global stage. What we've seen is probably the pushback that, as you'll hear from Scott Morrison in a moment, said that was expected from this decision to be made. But Scott Morrison has said that he feels that this was the right decision for Australia. Geopolitically, the US has backed it in as well, saying that this is important to bolster supplies in the Indo-Pacific. But how we're going to see all of this play out is at the United Nations, because this is the first time that many of these countries are coming face to face. And we've had Scott Morrison land now in town for what's going to be a jam-packed 24 hours. But it was on arrival that he said that he's confident that Australia still made the right decision.
It would be naive to think that a decision of this nature was not going to cause disappointment, obviously, to the French. We understand that. We totally acknowledge that. And we knew that that would be the case. And it was not possible for us to be able to discuss such secure issues in relation to our dealings with other countries at that time.
For the US, this comes at a really interesting time, because we are expecting Joe Biden to speak at the United Nations tomorrow to give this address to the General Assembly. In that, he's expected to say that this closes a chapter on 2 years of America being at war, and now they're looking at intense diplomacy in how they engage with the rest of the world. But at the same time, they're facing down this diplomatic stoush with one of their longest allies.
It is not so much about breaking a contract, an industrial contract. It is, of course, having a negative impact on France. But of course, first and foremost, it is a matter of breaking the trust between allies. And it brings about some heavy reflections on behalf of we, the Europeans, as to the way we see our alliances and partnerships.
The president will have a call. It has yet. We're still working on the scheduling of it with President Macron in the coming days. And what I expect the president will do on that call is reaffirm our commitment to working with one of our oldest and closest partners on a range of challenges that the global community is facing. And he, of course, will discuss recent developments and our ongoing work together on a range of issues. Certainly our shared interest in the Indo-Pacific, but also a range of global challenges and issues.
Annalise, as with these things, particularly at the United Nations, what happens on the sidelines is often just as important as the main game, and Scott Morrison will have a flurry of meetings.
He will indeed, and there's no guarantee that it'll all be positive feedback, but it's certainly engagement nonetheless. There's been a lot of speculation around the fact that Scott Morrison's not getting an Oval Office meeting like you might have expected. There's been briefing from both sides about this, the White House in particular saying that it was nothing about the status of the relationship, that to fit in the General Assembly appearance for the president, as well as the Quad meeting, a COVID roundtable that's going to be held at the White House, as well as a number of other engagements, including meetings with the Prime Ministers of Japan and India at the White House. It was simply a logistical thing. But of course, time will tell about how that all plays out. We do know that Scott Morrison's going to have bilateral meetings with the NATO Secretary Jens Stoltenberg, the EU Commission President, also the Austrian Chancellor and the Prime Minister of Sweden. And that's kind of perceived as being bolstering some of those European ties around France and its close allies. But notable Scott Morrison meeting with Joe Biden. Also in attendance will be Antony Blinken and John Kerry, the climate envoy for the Biden administration. And we know there's been a bit of antipathy between the US and Australia over climate reduction targets. And so it's likely there'll be a push for something a little more ambitious than what Australia is currently doing at the moment.